Well, hey everybody, this is Buddy. Well, I've been trying to master this understanding of how to stream, and it's not been easy, but I think I've got some configuration problems worked out, and so that's going to be cool. I'm going to start having live guests here real soon. I've got some people that I've been talking to that have really good understanding about how to explain the deception with religion, and that seems to be a good topic to talk about. I can't personally myself explain it except to tell you that with a conscious awakening of a thought that it can be explained actually starts the process of leading you to information to answer the questions. And that's one of the keys, is to be able to ask the right questions. Because religion is a tough subject to talk about. When people get their feelings hurt, or, they say you don't talk about politics, religion, and a couple other things, money. But I like to ask the deep questions. I like to know what it is that I've been lied to about. And it's so much that once we start asking the right questions, and we're open to get the answers and receive how it's been given to us, then we find out that just about every major fact that they give us in this reality as a historical, scientific, and approvable fact is not necessarily backed up with the truth of reality. It's a deception that has been with us for a long time. And as even a young person, I questioned a lot of things because my thinking was different. I wasn't awake. I wasn't consciously awake. I didn't wake up as far as collect consciously in August the 17th, 2003. And then I'm on an awakening path now. I mean, it's like it's an ever-ending path to understand what it means to know who you are and start removing, because there's multiple veils. You have to remove multiple veils to get to the one that keeps us separated from our true identity. And so tonight, the video that I'm going to be introducing you to is Matthew LaCroix, and he's done some really great work seeking out the hidden wisdoms that are archaeologically, scientifically proven to be dated and understood, the science behind it. And would you believe the phone's ringing right while I'm trying to talk? I'm going to take this anyway. Hey, baby. I'll be back with you people in just 1 second. Hey, I'm doing a live broadcast, so you want to say something to the people real quick?
No, bye.
All right, bye. Okay, I gotta figure out how to cut that off so it don't ring. But well, look. There's no need of me trying to explain what this video is about. It's this guy, Matthew LaCroix. He is so good at doing what he does, and that's one of the reasons I'm featuring him. He's an up-and-comer YouTuber type person, and he's got really good stories to tell, and he backs it up with scientific proof and facts, and that's one reason I like him so much. And I'm going to have his information in the description box, so when you get a chance, go visit his stuff and check him out, and you'll find out why I like him. And so I'm going to just go right on into it, and appreciate you watching my channel and liking it. Leave a comment, and if there's any other subjects that you want to talk about when we get to the deception of religion, some of my guests are being really eloquent at explaining and understanding how the deception really got started. So here's the video I've been talking to you about.
Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Mathieu, and I want to welcome back to the show the awesome author and amazing researcher of ancient history, ancient cuneiform texts, Matthew LaCroix. Matthew, how you doing today?
Great, it's awesome to be back here. Of course, some of my favorite topics, so who couldn't be excited, right?
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us. And every once in a while, with returning guests, I like to get your a little bit about your background again and what brought you to your current path.
Okay. So I was someone who really, believe it or not, I really didn't study this stuff or look into ancient history secrets or any of that when I was young. I was someone who just spent all his time out in the woods, running around, hiking mountains and exploring, and that was my side of it, seeing this whole side of the connections found in balances seen throughout nature, and then seeing the unbalances in our society and in how we treat our world, trashing it and ignoring all of it, and people just driving the highway and running over animals and not even caring. It was like this sickness of our world, and it drove me to the point where when I was younger, to start trying to figure out what was going on from that side. And after pushing the limits of myself, going off alone and camping into some wild areas where I shouldn't have been, and getting almost in a lot of trouble. And in many cases, I did have situations where I probably could have got either seriously hurt or lost my life. But because of those moments, it drove me to want to write them down. And that's where all of my career as being a writer, as my secondary job, started. And then that's where the whole ancient history thing began, because as I started writing down and looking into my perspective of how I viewed society and how I saw, the balance of nature and everything. And I wrote, my first book was actually called My Wilderness, because it was this idea of my perspective on how I viewed the world and the experiences that I was having, my experiences. And I'm subsequently going back to redo that book. But what really happened to me was in college, I started really researching this stuff. And after college, I got on a path, I guess, like a lot of people could say, where they really, they feel like they want to know answers. It's not enough and there's a lot of different kinds of individuals. Some people will be satisfied with learning more of a base understanding of how reality works around them, and then they feel like they have a grasp on things. So what do? They put it down and they go back to their life and they move on, right? They're done. Or people are in college and they're studying for years and years and they think it's all the same, so they think, oh, I'm done, I'm not going to ever research or look into things again. And unfortunately, that's a pretty large segment of our population, are people that decide that they're done learning and they just move on with their life. In reality, like a lot of us truthers know, is once you start going down this road, you realize that you don't really know that much at all, because there's been a lot of things hidden, and there's been a lot of means which have blocked off our understanding of the fundamentals of both ancient history and reality, because of a tightly controlled curriculum that was designed by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers years and years and years ago, that is taught in every school. And that's why people when they start looking into the Sumerians and all of the advanced knowledge that they had, that they got out of nowhere, and they developed basically everything that we know of today in terms of the fundamentals, of agriculture, governing laws, mathematics, that all came from them. And yet the Sumerians aren't even really taught in school. There's not even classes really that cover them. If people happen to get into some special class that's being offered in college, then congratulations to them. But I never had those opportunities, and I don't think most people do either. And so when I started going down this road, it became apparent to me that there was a lot of information that was jumbled and just left out there with these breadcrumbs from all these ancient societies. And they were trying to tell us something. They were trying to tell us a story. And so I then got on this road of saying, well, what is our story? And what is the story of history? And that's how we get to where we get today, because I was someone who had the opportunity to have some time, which is, I understand, is a critical component in all this. If you don't have time, how are you supposed to do any of this? Especially if your energy is all drained through working and spending all of your precious time, and then you don't have any ability to be able to find these things out. And I do think that's one of the brilliant things about YouTube is it does give people, if they're objective in what they're picking and what they're looking at, it gives them the opportunity to listen to something maybe perhaps when they wouldn't be able to read or study something, right?
Right. I don't know if you can hear that, but it is storming in the background back here. Yeah, that is rain. So if we happen to go out, I'll reconnect on my cell phone, but just letting you know, that's what that background noise is. It is storming out here. But sorry, go ahead and continue. Yeah,
that's fine. So I wrote eventually, and I think I rushed it a little bit too much early on, releasing The Illusion of Us, because I really wanted so much of this information to get out. And so, after the second version and all the time I went back in to try to make it perfect, I'm learning those lessons. I'm learning those lessons right now because I'm trying to release the third book, which I think is by far the most important one that I've written. And I'm trying to slow down and make sure that I get everything based on evidence and facts. So that's what I've been spending my time over the last year and slowly doing less and less shows because I'm trying to get this done. So I'm excited to release this. It's going to be called The Stage of Time. And it's really going to delve into understanding. It's a little bit more of an advanced book than The Illusion of Us. It's delving into understanding, well, what makes up our reality? What really defines it? Is it defined by what we see, or is it defined by something like superstring theory in this electromagnetic universe? Is that what really defines our universe in all these ways? But then moving beyond just that, I wanted to bring in the whole ancient history aspect of explaining these antediluvian civilizations and the separation point for why we lost so much technology and knowledge, and how, we're made to believe we live in a world surrounded by billions of other planets and solar systems, and yet it's all empty. And yet, there's never been any influence with any of developing human societies and any of that. And so this book is going to take all of these juicy pieces of evidence from like the Atrahasis and the Enuma Elish and the Emerald Tablets and so many other places too. It's going to take so many of these juicy pieces, and it's going to have direct translations from the best translators that have done this. And it's going to look into, well, what really is the story of the past, the present, and what is the truth of our reality. And so that's what I've been really consumed with, I guess you could say. And I'm right at the end of finishing it and going back through and getting it up to where it needs to be. But I'm hoping I can have that released a little bit after the new year.
That will be awesome. We'll be very much looking forward to that. I mean, those topics are amazing. And it brings us to some of the things that I'd love to talk about tonight. And I'm glad that you mentioned our education system and how they don't teach anything real to begin with, let alone any real history. And you've done such amazing research into the Sumerian cultures and the ancient cuneiform. And let's begin there, but let's not only begin there, let's begin with where we come from. Okay. Anunnaki beings, were they our creators? Did they create us from something that was already existing here? What are your thoughts?
Okay. Before I jump into that, I want to just let people know that we're going to be going through some topics that I've never discussed before. And some of these things I've gone over in a few shows, and I don't want to be redundant. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with some human origin stuff with some Adrahasis and some other various readings that I've just to give us a base so that we can delve into some of these more complex topics like, the Nephilim and some of these really neat things that Magellan saw. And we're going to go into Emerald Tablet number 2 and some other various pieces of evidence that are really pretty amazing and unknown to a lot of people. So let me start by sharing a few slides while we have this discussion. When you think of the past and you think of where humans came from, and you look around at the animal kingdom, I think one of the greatest means that has held back our society and our consciousness from understanding the larger truths of where we belong and what we're part of is by thrusting us in this Darwinian model of us being just simply an animal like the rest of the animal kingdom. And a lot of people maybe aren't really aware of how destructive that mentality is. If someone feels that way, which most people do because that's been what's thrust and taught to us through all these different means, it's this idea that we got to this point simply based on survival of the fittest and by stepping on everything else to get here. That's essentially what that means, kill whatever is attacking you, conquer everything you can around you, and then become this powerful civilization that is these advanced monkeys, right? That's what they want us to believe is what's happening, and that there's no outside influences in that, this whole, pool of ooze gets struck by lightning, and then you have these, macroinvertebrates and all these things that come out of this, and then eventually all of these different millions of species come out of it, and eventually human beings come out of apes, and that's what we're taught.
Right.
And I want to talk about how that's not what ancient history says, and that's not what the evidence says at all. The evidence is actually quite the contrary. It is, and I think that's one of the problems is that when people start looking at some of these tablets and some of the informations from some of these ancient cultures, when they compare it to such a mundane viewpoint that we've been given, like about what I just said, about having how we're nothing, right? And that's that mentality. Nothing special, just an evolved ape. You can get whatever wealth you can, accumulate whatever you can, have get as much as you can.
We're kind of treated that way by the elites as well. That like we're nothing. With the food that we eat and the air that we breathe, they kind of enforce that we are basically nothing as well. Exactly.
If you were trying to keep people from knowing their true energy potential and what they really are, one of the best ways to do it, besides hiding all this information, would be to dumb them down and sicken them so much that their entire vibrational structure of their energy is so low that they are functioning as a primitive being. That's essentially what they've done to us. Look at the news that just came out. We're looking at this Glio's fate, or whatever that new with Monsanto is basically spraying on wheat to try to have it so pests and mold and various things don't ruin it, and yet that's extremely harmful and dangerous, and it can cause cancer, and it's in almost every single cereal that's been promoted to all these kids. It's just like when we saw this big news announcement come out saying that these salted meats and these cured meats can cause cancer, and yet look at Lunchables and all of these foods that were being given to developing children so they could be strong and healthy, and at the same, what was it actually doing? It was sickening everybody, causing people to be less than their potential would have been, and not even just that, causing them to exist in a state of energy that they don't belong in. That's the most important point that we're going to get to as we go through all of this. We're going to get through and discuss the finer points of the fact that we are nothing like the animals in the insects and all the other things that are in our world. We are completely separate from that, and we should view ourselves that way, not in an elitist way, but as more of stewards that should be taking care of this planet, and yet we're just trashing and stealing all of its, oil and gas and burning it all and destroying our world and filling our oceans with plastic. Is that how beings that have higher consciousness and may come from the stars? Is that how they really should be acting? Look at one of the things that sickens me the most is if you look at the idea, if you think about the idea that if we are these great beings, the fact that we could be physically assaulting and attacking each other and killing each other in wars and all these different means is really gets even more disgusting when you separate it out beyond Darwinism, because it's such a primitive nature. It's such a primitive means that it's very sad to me to see how people have been so conditioned to exist in that state. And so let's start here, right? You have this question mark at the bottom right of the screen. Right. What is this missing link? Where did we come from? Where did all this start? Well, I want to get a little bit of background, and some of these things I've covered, but I want to bring them up again. And if we look at cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia, that's where you need to start. That's really where you need to start. But you need to get pure translations. Be very careful. I would essentially stick with the translations of George Smith and Stephanie Daly. We really appreciate everything, and I look forward to another discussion again.